We are live with Owen Marshall. Thank you for joining us today. So you're joining us as part of a series, and we're talking to a lot of professionals that maybe aren't following the traditional primary or secondary route, and they've got into different careers. So we're going to be talking to you today about pupil referral units and ALN and additional learning needs. So welcome, Owen. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
So, can you tell us about where do you work now? Where are you working at the moment?
So at the moment, I am a teacher in Whitchurch High School SRB, which is the specialist resource base. I've only started there this September. Prior to that, I was deputy head at a behaviour unit for a private company called Priory, and that was based up in Monmouthshire, a place called Talaga School. That was a school for pupils with behavioural difficulties. We only had 50 pupils in the whole school, but it was a challenging environment for pupils with difficulties who were being excluded or expelled from different local authorities. Like I said, I was there for 11 years. Fancy a bit of a change, and now I'm working in Whitchurch High School in the specialist resource base for pupils with ALN and SEN, and it's a different kind of challenge, but it's less focused on behaviour, more on kind of special needs and academic progress with the pupils, really.
Awesome. So I know you've spoken to our students before, and they found it really useful. Just for those students who maybe they know they want to work with children, but maybe they don't want to work in a mainstream class, and they're thinking about potentially different sectors. Would you mind just starting off and just telling us about, how did you start to get into this sort of sector? Because I know you started off. And...
Yeah, so hang on, shall I move my slide on?
Go on.
Here we are.
Look
I
at
trained
those
as a
there.
PE teacher. This is terrible. I didn't choose the photo, by the way, okay, guys, just so you know. I trained as a PE teacher a while ago. Now I can't remember the exact year. But like many PGC PE students found, there was quite a lack of jobs, especially in Cardiff. So I was applying all over the place: Bristol, Worcester, Birmingham. And then I applied for a job in Monmouthshire. I had an interview, phoned the school the day before the interview, and it's a good job I did, because just to get more information. And I said, I'm coming in tomorrow for interview, anything I need to know, how many pupils in the school. And the lady on the phone said, there's 17. I was like, sorry, excuse me? I think you mean 70. She said, no, I know how many kids in my school, there's 17. So it kind of threw me a little bit, because all the information wasn't that clear. So if any advice I can give is definitely always ring a school before you go for an interview. Get some more information. So I went for the job there as a PE teacher. Didn't know it was a behaviour unit. I didn't get the job, but they asked me to come back the next week to work on supply. Once I was there for a couple of days, they offered me a permanent contract, and I was there, like I said, for 11 years. I think I had no intention of going into special ed or behavioural schools, but it suited me really well. Kind of my kind of approach to teaching, my kind of ethos. I enjoyed it more. Don't get me wrong, I love to have a class of 30 kids and they sit down and do what they're told and go where they should do and do everything. But I kind of thrived on the unpredictability of it and the enjoyment of it. It does sound really corny, but you're working with some of the pupils, some of the kids who had it so tough, and it's really rewarding. And that's the thing that I was, going home thinking, what, the staff we're working with have given those kids a really good day today. They might have really bad backgrounds. A lot of them have come from kind of abusive homes or in care, or just haven't got good families around them. And what our job was to do was obviously firstly educate them, but secondly try and give them kind of social skills that they can succeed in life, but also make them enjoy school. If you're working in the behaviour unit, people don't really want to be there. They don't want to be in school. All their experience of education have been negative. So what we want to do was make it positive, and that for me gave me a lot of freedom to be creative with what I was teaching and how I was teaching. You know, we would use outside agencies and we go on trips and we do different kind of things like that. And I just really enjoyed it. You know, and I thought after a couple of years, I'd go back into mainstream and I'd see, you know, I'd get into a PE job and go on a skiing trip with loads of kids and have a good time. But I didn't want to, you know, it was just, like I said, I had no intention of going into special ed or additional learning needs. But once I was there, I loved it. And, you know, we've spoken before, Nick, about how some of the pupils on PGC or graduate courses that don't have the experience to see these different settings because it's all focused on a mainstream education. And I know people I'm working with now who are TAs that want to do their PGC or qualification in teaching, but only want to work in special ed. And I think it's really important that pupils who are looking at students rather who are looking at going into teaching, if they want to, get the opportunity to explore kind of different sectors, including like behaviour units, special ed, ALN, all kind of the bits that go with it, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important, I think. And, you know, we've talked about this before, but it's almost that you fell into this sector, but I know that you've said before you wouldn't change a thing. So just for our students, they got the opportunity on the course to go and explore different things and different sectors. You know, even if you just go in for a week, 2 weeks, just to explore that, I think it's so important. There's so many different things you get into. You know, so many of our graduates go through and they'll just go into a mainstream classroom. Like Owen's saying, so important you just try different things. You know, all these opportunities that Owen's had, you know, it's because he's tried that. And again, I've been into the setting. I think what really stood out was the relationships that you develop. I think they're quite different to maybe in a mainstream school. Like you were able to develop very different relationships with the pupils there because, you know, they'd probably had so much change in their background. You were the one consistent thing. So although it was really hard, those relationships go a lot deeper than maybe in a normal classroom.
100%. I'm just going to move this slide on because I'm sick of looking at myself and my photo. But yeah, 100%. What you touched on them relationships wise, I fundamentally believe that teachers and students, if you want to be a good teacher, you need to have good relationships with the pupils, and obviously appropriate relationships. But pupils who have had bad experiences, who are in pupil referral units or haven't got the care around them, or maybe in care or anything like that, really. Even pupils who are you class as normal, and normal is not the kind of right word to say, but if you build a positive relationship with pupils, then that lasts. You know, the reason why I wanted to be a teacher was because of our PE teacher, Nick Bryn-Lewis, and he's the reason I wanted to be a PE teacher. You know, I thought this guy's great. You know, he goes the extra mile for us. He does the extra thing. He puts in the hours. He cares, and that had a massive impact on me. And the relationship I had with him was fantastic. And I hope that I can have the same relationship with pupils. You know, and I've seen pupils that I worked with in behaviour units in town, and they've been out causing mischief, and they've seen me, and they've stopped. They've gone, oh, Owen, sorry, how you doing? Yeah, how's it going? And you know, that kind of positive impact I can have on somebody's life, for me, it's fantastic. And you know, when you're old, you'll see people you walk past and you say, oh, I taught him, and I want to be able to be remembered by the people I teach as fondly as I remember my old teacher. So, you know, relationships is huge and definitely in a mainstream setting, but also if you're going to go into special ed or that kind of area, they're tenfold. You know, it's much more important there. Like I said, the relationships go a lot deeper there as well.
I think Mr. Lewis would be very proud of those thighs that were on that picture there.
Yeah, I'm not sure he would.
So you've talked a little bit about some of the benefits, because, you know, I think I was really surprised, because we've done a few projects with your schools. I was really surprised at some of the pupils that went there. You know, you hear so much in the press about, you know, the type of pupil, as you said, like normal, the type of pupil that would be there. But, you know, some of them come from quite normal families, and it's behaviour issues, and maybe they just haven't fitted with some of the schools, and that was really surprising to me.
Yeah, it is, and it's just, excuse me, like you said, you can, people often categorise pupils into certain areas. They come from a deprived area, they're going to go to that school, they're going to have behavioural issues. It's not always the case. We've had pupils that in the behaviour unit I worked in come from, a normal family background. And for whatever reason, there may be traits of autism, there may be traits of learning difficulties, there may be kind of things they can't deal with, emotional and social regulation, for whatever that manifests in behaviour. And it's getting through to any people, any and all people. And another thing that's really important, I think, is the staff, because I'm quite sporty. I like sports. People who like sports usually get on with me. Other colleagues are really into computers. Different people get into them. So in a school, it's like at any workplace. You've got different people who suit into different kind of categories as well. And it's finding the right person to work with, especially in terms of kind of behaviour, or even where I am now in Whitchurch. I know there's some people that don't really like me, and some people that do. Obviously, the ones that don't like me are wrong.
I can't believe that.
But it's having those relationships. And I know if somebody's upset in my class that I'm not like their key adult, then I'll go and find Joe Blogs or someone to go speak to them. And it's realising that teaching is really important, but it goes deeper than that, a lot deeper. And in terms of special ed, definitely we need to be thinking about how we're supporting pupils, how we're looking after pupils, mentally, emotionally, everything, because with all the COVID things and everything, it's quite prevalent now, mental well-being. It should have been like that 5, 10, maybe 20 years ago, but it hasn't been. But that kind of aspect of it is huge for me.
We talked about some of the benefits. Obviously, it is a challenging environment. What are some of the challenges of working in a setting such as the Priory?
So it's every day is different, and there's plenty of stories that I could say, but I won't be able to. But I've got scars on my brow and scars on my lip from where I've been headbutted or hit, because somebody's been emotionally heightened, and it is part of the job for where I was, and I was okay with it. A lot of the staff are okay with it, but I think you need to be honest with yourself if you're going to work in that kind of setting, if you can take it, because you can have a bad day in mainstream school and people might be a bit rude and you can send them out and you might have a tough lesson. But if you have a bad day in a PIU or a behavioural unit, it could be police being called, people being arrested, safeguarding issues, people being hurt, cars getting smashed up. So it can be quite tough, but it's if you're in it for the right reason, then you're going to go back. But also I think having that team around you is massively important. Teachers don't work individually; we'll work with a team of people. You'll have departments, you'll have the SLT, you'll have all TAs in classes as well, and it's that support. And again, more relationships. The relationships with the pupils is hugely important, but having relationships with the staff is just as important, because you need to know that someone's got your back if something's going to go wrong, and likewise that you're going to maybe question somebody if you think they're doing something a bit wrong. But yeah, there are tough days. Like I said, we've had cars being broken, police being called, windows being smashed, pupils climbing on roofs and things like that. But touch wood, it's all ended appropriately. And sometimes it takes a bit longer to calm somebody down and bring them down to kind of level, an even keel. But sometimes it can be done quite quickly, and it's having the right person to do that and being able to work with them that way.
Definitely. I mean, I know, speaking to a number of our students, they're really interested in working in a setting such as this or additional learning needs. What advice would you give to them to get into a setting?
Be open-minded. Be open-minded and be flexible. I think you need to be able to adapt to whatever you're doing. You know, like I said, I had no intention of going to this kind of this environment, but when I was there, I loved it, and I found the flexibility for me was a real positive thing. You know, I've still got lessons that I planned 10 years ago that I didn't teach because for whatever reason. But then, you know, on the cuff, I would say, right, you know what, let's go and play a game of football, or let's go down to the shops, let's go and we'll get some money and we'll see if we can order some ingredients and make a pizza. So being able to be flexible, being in it for the right reason, but also having kind of a desire to do it, you know, and that comes from different things. And like I said, some people might have their mind already made up that they want to go into like work in an SRB or a referral unit or a ALN centre. And some people still might not be sure. But, you know, from my experience, all I can say is that I've loved it. And I think just having to work with pupils like that and being able to make a difference and thinking, you know what I'm doing here is making a difference. It helps. Sorry, there's a train in the background there, not sure doing it. But I think, yeah, being flexible and doing your research as well. You know, like I said, I phoned the school the day before my interview, and I realised it wasn't what I thought it was. But like you were saying, if you're offering students to go and visit these places, which they haven't been able to do in the past, it gives somebody an idea of that. You know what, I do fancy that, or you know, it might not be for everybody. They might say, you know what, I don't fancy that. I want to work in a mainstream school.
Yeah, and it might just rule it out for you, but if you don't try it, I speak to so many of our students that say, yeah, I definitely want to work with ALN. I want to work with special educational needs, but then they've never had any experience in a setting. So I think it's just so important to go in there and to actually experience it and speak to teachers such as yourself, and you actually get to see the warts and all of what life is actually like. Because
it is, because sorry, I cut you off then, didn't I? But it is because people may have a preconception of what they think it's going to be, and you know, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it is really tough, and you know, you got all of the kind of the nice things I said about the relationships and doing education differently and being creative and flexible. But also, you still got to do your qualifications when they get to Key Stage 4. You still got to do entry qualifications. You still got to do GCSEs if they're able to. So you've still got all of the other aspects of a mainstream school on top of all of the aspects of a special needs setting as well.
Yeah, definitely. Any other tips, suggestions? I'm all over you. I'm messing up your slides here, big time.
I know. I'm just going through one of them.
I think it was the next one we talk about opportunities, how to work there. I think you've said there obviously about flexibility, and I think that's so important across any setting, really. Just taking initiative, going in, volunteering, and when you're there, you know, putting your hand up to do stuff. That's the way you're going to get into the world of work, I think, especially in ALN and PRUs. Anything you want to add?
100%. I think it is just having the opportunity, I think, and getting your foot in the door. You know, one of the reasons why I moved on from Talaga to come to work in the school in Cardiff was because I wanted to, there's a big, you know, the ALN reform in Wales. Cardiff's going to be massive, and there's, you know, new school developments. I wanted to see if I can develop myself that way, because I think I can do a lot there, rather than being stuck up in a company up in Monmouth. So, you know, one of the reasons for me coming back was getting my foot in the door. You know, having the opportunity to work in a big school, which it's a giant school, and then, you know, creating links with other schools now. You know, we've already got links with different schools. We've got links with universities. We've got links with colleges, and it's, you know, it's an age-old saying that it's not what you know, but who you know. And if you can create these links with people, and have these opportunities to go into schools or go into settings and just volunteer or do something maybe after school clubs, and do those kind of things, it helps massively, because you're not going in blind, because, you know, having that misconception of what you think it is isn't always the best idea. So definitely, you know, if you get any experience you can, have a look at doing it.
And just picking up a point there as well, I think you just mentioned it. It's such a growing sector. You know, it's really competitive to get into the classroom, mainstream classroom. As you said at the start, how you got into it, it's really tough to find a classroom teacher's job, especially in Cardiff. So jobs like these within this sector, not everyone wants to do it. It could be, an area that students might get into and find work.
It could be a stepping stone, definitely. I had no intention of working where I was for 11 years, but I qualified as a PE teacher and I needed a job, so I was applying for everything, and turned out okay for me. But definitely I recommend don't shy away from applying for any ALN jobs because you're uncertain of it, because if it gets you in the door, it could be a stepping stone for whatever you do then.
And just on that, obviously, I think this is your last slide now. The contact details, who you know. I don't know. I know some of our students were really keen to ask some questions about ALN settings or pupil referral units. I've put your details there to share. Hopefully you don't get more followers than me now on Twitter, and I've put your Twitter details.
I'll add them to my one follower.
But yeah, so there's some of the contact details there. But again, it's who you know. It's about building relationships. It's trying to get some experience in places like Owen School, or if you don't live in Cardiff, we could look to help you with a placements office. Just get in touch and we can try and help you there. Any final thoughts? Anything we haven't covered? Anything you wanted to mention? Any advice?
I don't think so. I'll keep all my stories for after recording. But no, I like I said, for me, I had no intention of going into special education or additional learning needs. I kind of fell into it, but I've loved it, and I think people go into teaching for whatever reason they go into teaching for, but it's all about relationships and working with people. And I think the majority of people go into teaching because they want to work with people and help people. And I think if you're helping the most vulnerable peoples in society, then that's great. So that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think for our students, there's so many creative, inspirational, like so many students who are almost, they can go through to mainstream, which is fine, but I think they'd make such an impact in a sector such as yours. So just give it a go. I think that's the main message from both of us, really. It's just have a go. It may not be for you, but just try and experience it. Owen, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you get some followers. We'll see you soon.
You're very welcome. Cheers. Cheers.